As many of us can relate, the pandemic has been a source of stress in our lives, but coping with that stress has caused some to turn to drugs and alcohol. Father Cedric Pisegna says there is a solution. He joins us now to talk about his latest book on recovery and addictions. And Father, back in June of last year, the CDC said 13% of Americans reported starting or increasing substance use as a way of coping with stress or emotions related to COVID-19. There's even been a spike in online gambling in the past year. So what's the solution to this problem?
Well, the solution is spiritual, Christine. There is an epidemic going on in the midst of our pandemic, and people are turning to all kinds of substances. As you know, liquor stores were deemed essential businesses, and people are looking to escape. There's the quarantine fatigue, there's all kinds of reasons, but there is a solution, and the solution is spiritually based. And I base it on the 12-step program. Basically, you have to admit that you're powerless over your addiction. You have to believe that God has the power to help you. And then, of course, you surrender to the care of God. And then you change your habits, and it can happen with God's help. And I also want to say very quickly that you got to be motivated, because if you're not motivated, nothing's going to happen. And oftentimes what happens with an addiction is people go through a suffering of some sort. We can call it a bottoming out, remorse, guilt, whatever it is, or it could be an intervention from a family member that causes that person to want to change. So with motivation and then surrendering to God, you can experience not freedom, but recovery from addictions.
Now, you mentioned the solution being spiritual. A number of programs like Alcoholics Anonymous are faith-based or have a spiritual aspect. So why is faith so important to recovery, and how can people use that to strengthen their faith?
Because you need more than resolution to get into recovery. You really do need a revolution, and the revolution comes by God's power. That's the genius behind the 12-step program. Whether it's about alcoholism or drugs or pornography or gambling, as you said, you really do need divine help. And Bill Wilson, who founded Alcoholics Anonymous, talks about an awakening. And the awakening comes, you could have a spiritual experience like a transfiguration experience, or simply realizing that God is giving your willpower new strength to be able to resist the addiction and come into recovery.
So you gave us some tips for people who are struggling with addictions. What about if we have loved ones struggling with addiction? What can we do to help?
Well, definitely you can pray for them. Also, you can talk with them. If it's the right moment, you have to be careful because they'll get defensive very quickly. That's why interventions are really risky, but they could do the trick. Intervention is when you get a couple people together that love you and you talk bluntly about your behavior, and those interventions can work. And as I said, if you're addicted, you've got to be motivated, and sometimes your loved ones talking to you is the motivation that you need to come into recovery. And also, you can give them my book or other books that are important regarding addictions. That could help that person too. So pray for them, talk with them, an intervention, give them a book. Yeah, all of the above.
All right, Father Cedric Pisegna, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Christine. A joy to be with you.
And if you would like a copy of There Is a Solution, head on over to fathercedric.org. And you can watch Father Cedric every Sunday during Lent at 7:30 p.m. on Net TV and daily at 2:30 p.m. If you're watching Currents News on YouTube, be sure to hit the subscribe button and click on the bell to get updates to all of our newest content, because we are putting your faith in the news.